Recording in progress. Hi, everybody. Good to see you all. Randy Height here from the Nancy Marks Cancer Wellness Center. I just want to briefly tell you about the Nancy Marks Cancer Wellness Center. It is a place where cancer survivors find community to be with one another, to learn, to grow, to become stronger emotionally, physically, and spiritually. We offer a discussion group, short-term individual counseling, discussion groups, educational programs such as this evening's, information referral services, and so much more. Please contact us if you have a diagnosis or you know of somebody who has a diagnosis. We'd be so happy to be there for them. Tonight, I'd like to introduce Dr. Lisa Korman. She's a psychologist from a very new center that we formed at the SJJCC, Dr. Gayle or Berg Center for Psychological Resilience. This is a topic that I really wanted to have discussed for a very long time. And when Dr. Korman, Lisa, and I had this conversation, she too felt very strongly about the topic. So she's going to tell you first and foremost what the Dr. Gayle Berg Center for Psychological Resilience is, what they do and hope to achieve. And she's also going to talk about how you can grow after having a traumatic experience in your life. So thank you, Lisa, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay. Hi, everybody. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me, Randy. Thank you. Oh, we have someone in the waiting room.
I'll
Thank
take
you for
care of that.
inviting me. Thank you, everybody, for welcoming me into your living room or wherever we're sitting. Welcome into mine. So yes, first I'm going to share with you a little bit about the resilience, our Center for Psychological Resilience. But really foremost, it's that I'm very pleased and happy to be here with you to discuss a topic that, I mean, it's a great topic. It's an important topic. I just want to be 100% upfront and say that I'm bouncing on a very little screen. My my cable to connect my second screen seems to have lost its power to do so. So I apologize. I'm going to be shuffling a little bit. I wish I didn't have to do that, but I'm going to ask you to bear with me on that. So I've shared my screen. I don't know if everybody has their screen adjusted so that you go into speaker mode or gallery mode, then you could put all the, I mean, you don't have to look at the slides. You could just listen. But if you'd like to see the slides, and of course, I will make the slides available to Randy if anybody would like a copy. But if you'd like to see the slides, then just put all the names into the side. And there are also closed captions, which Randy and I agreed were a little bit distracting, but somehow it must be deep in a setting which we cannot change, at least not in the
Sure, we
couple
try.
minutes that we gave each other. So sorry if that's distracting. Okay, those are all of my apologies out of the way. And now let's get down to business. So we're talking today about fostering post-traumatic growth and resilience. And while the tone of our conversation, the examples that we're going to be talking about today, and hopefully the conversation that we'll be able to have after I present, is very much about you and your cancer journey. Post-traumatic growth is a topic that can be related really to anything, and that anybody who's lived a rich human life, we've all had things that have been difficult. So whether it's growth after a trauma of an accident, a family situation, a divorce, a loss, grief, I just wanted to mention that again, while we're talking about cancer, really the topic is very large. So whoops, why am I not? There we go. So again, I come to you from Sid Jacobson, which is a rich and robust place, not only a gym, and a nursery school, which we're very famous for, but a number of centers. I have shamelessly put the Dr. Gayle Berg Center for Psychological Resilience in bold. This was a center that was established by a donor, Gayle Berg, really with the mission and intention to not speak only about treatment, not only speak about resilience and psychological health in response, which is very important and which we do beautifully at Sid Jacobson, including our cancer support groups, our bereavement groups, our wellness groups, etc. But in fact, the focus of the center is primarily on creating a collection of activities and events and workshops so that people can collect ideas, education, harness skills so that when difficult things happen, we are better able to face them, which is really the definition of resilience. To be resilient doesn't mean that we're not impacted negatively when bad things happen or difficult things happen. Resilience actually comes from the French word that means to bounce back. Honestly, I don't even think bouncing back is actually accurate. It's hard to think that when something difficult happens, cancer, again, trauma, that we just return to who we were before the event. It's just that we kind of bounce into a new version of who we are. So it's kind of just being able to respond and to grow through it. So that's a little bit about the center, and anybody who wants to know more about it, of course, we could speak about that at another time also. Okay, but today we're talking about fostering post-traumatic growth and certainly, again, facing challenges, finding inner strength, perseverance in the face of unknown as cancer patients. And I don't mean to assume everybody here is. There might be various reasons people have come to join us today, but I am going to present my remarks as to the person who's in their cancer journey, if that's okay. So a cancer diagnosis is a pretty profound moment. I guess I want to share with you just very briefly. I know sometimes when you hear people speak about a topic and you say like, oh, she had the experience, does she know what she's talking about? So I have not had a cancer diagnosis. I have been, unfortunately, although there have been some very beautiful things that have come of it, I've been a caregiver um, in two people very close to me, my mother and my husband. So I'm very in touch with the experience. Again, the experience from the caregiver side. I don't mean to say that I know where you are, but I want you to know that I do have some insight into it. And I definitely know that a cancer diagnosis is a very profound moment. It can trigger an intense range of emotions, certainly uncertainty, resilience, understanding that emotional impact. That is what is really crucial, and a little bit what we're going to explore today. The challenges faced by a cancer patient are certainly unique. There are physical challenges, emotional challenges, treatment side effects, uncertainty about the future, impacts on your relationships, and recognizing and talking about these challenges is really the first step, coming together in a group. And you'll see, we'll talk about that in a few minutes, but coming together as a group to support these, that's another mechanism of this experience. So I want to speak with you a little bit, just kind of understanding what we talk about as the cancer trauma. And I wish there was a more delicate way I could like subhead this topic, but we'll call it understanding the cancer trauma. Really, three things I want to focus on. The trauma and its impact, the emotional and psychological challenges, and the potential for growth and resilience, which is really going to launch us into the meat of what we're going to do today. So when we use the word cancer trauma, we're referring to the psychological and emotional distress that comes with the experience of a diagnosis. And again, that encompasses fear, shock. I'm sure that we could spend at least the next hour sharing your stories, your experiences, and a lot of you will see that mirrored in each other. And some of you have very unique stories. I mean, everyone's story is unique, but there's some things that are shared and some things that are very individual. But I think it is safe to say that there is, ongoing stress, uncertainty through the treatment journey. The impact of the cancer trauma, the diagnosis of cancer trauma, and the experience of being a cancer patient can be very profound. It can affect, and probably does affect, all aspects of life, mental well-being, relationships, general quality of life. Common challenges that are faced by cancer patients, and again, you could tell me this list is better than I could tell you this list, perhaps. Feelings of fear, sadness, anger, grief, the concerns about potential loss of health, concerns about loss of independence, anxiety, depression are also common. Many patients feel a loss of identity somewhere through their journey, where they become a patient as opposed to an individual. Self-esteem is hit, body image is hit, physical changes in treatment. So again, a list of things that unfortunately many of you probably know about. As far as the potential for growth and resilience, which is really where we want to focus today, while cancer diagnosis, of course, is challenging, undoubtedly challenging, it's important to recognize that there is a potential for resilience. Before I go on with my list, and just by a show of hands for those whose cameras are on, or if those of you in there know how to use the reactions, how many of you have thought about this concept before? How many of you are in your journey, you've thought like, yeah, I know that there are ways for me to grow, and I feel like I have grown. I see a thumbs up. I don't think I see everybody on my thing, but yeah, I'm seeing some responses. And to how many of you are you thinking like, what the heck is she talking about? How can there possibly be any positive growth here? So okay, so we're seeing a combination. Okay. We know that many cancer patients can develop a new appreciation for life, find a sense of gratitude, experience the opportunity to prioritize what truly matters in life. Um, Personal growth, and again, we'll go into these individually in a second, but self-awareness, coping skills, a stronger sense of purpose. There's a tremendous amount of research behind all of this, which again, it's my pleasure to share articles and further information for those of you who would be interested. I do want to first introduce you to this amazing, I don't know how many of you have ever heard of kintsugi? Anybody ever seen anything like this broken pot? This is an ancient Japanese art, of fixing cracked pottery. There's some story about some ancient Japanese king or emperor, and accidentally one of his generals knocked into his priceless object of art and broke it, and the emperor went crazy and he thought he did it on purpose, and the general gathered up the pieces and he brought them back to his village or wherever. And not only did he put it together, but where he fused the pieces of the pottery together, he inlaid it with gold. And he returned it to the emperor in order to humble himself and acknowledge that he did not mean it, and in fact that he has created beauty where the broken places used to exist. So when I've known about kintsugi, we're actually trying to to bring a program to the JCC one day. I think it would be really fun. There were like workshops where you could, bring your broken teacup and fix it. The message of kintsugi is that there is the potential to thrive in the aftermath. And while that is very beautiful, I also want to be real and honest and say that, to be sure, while many people can find post-traumatic growth, we would certainly prefer to never have had the trauma. So I say that again with humility, like this guy who broke the emperor's vase. Like what we're discussing today, these are some beautiful ideas. It doesn't mean that it's worth it. The diagnosis of cancer, that is something, of course, that I don't mean to say that the growth is worth the trauma, but part of resiliency and part of just psychological health in general is this ability for us to own contrary ideas and hold them together at the same time. We don't live in a black and white world where it's one without the other. So I thought that this little pottery story might serve as a nice example of that. Okay, so what is post-traumatic growth? So you can read that. It's really about positive changes that people can experience as a result of going through some very negative event, some navigating through some really difficult challenge. And it goes beyond resilience. Again, it's not just about bouncing back. It's not returning to a baseline. It's really about making a notable personal development or growth after something difficult has happened. Um, Admits the difficulty of your cancer journey or an individual's cancer journey, it means that somebody could find the capacity to undergo some really meaningful, emotional, psychological, spiritual change, positive change. And we're going to talk about each of those individually in a minute. In areas, oh, I have a nice little thing here. Yeah, I didn't create this. I know it's a little bit blurry. I grabbed it from a book of mine. But when we look at post-trauma growth, and we're going to go through each of these individually, so you don't have to worry about memorizing this, but personal strength, new possibilities, improved relationships, spiritual growth, and appreciation for life. So we talk about these five key components. So let's look at them one at a time. Personal strength and increased resilience. So I've given you, it's a little bit psychobabbly, I'm sorry, but I've given you kind of these headlines of like, well, what does it mean to have personal strength and what is increased resilience? So these 5 or 6 areas really are, kind of titles. So by cognitive adaptation, to adapt means to change and to fit in. Cognitive means thinking, like so to think in a way that lets me fit into this new situation. It's about reshaping thought patterns, taking a different perspective in response to a challenge, maybe fostering a positive mindset. Before I go on, I also want to say that, and I'll end with this also, but I have to front load it. Not everybody is going to connect with every one of these ideas. And you have permission to think and feel whatever you are thinking and feeling, including this information that I'm sharing with you, right? I'm sharing with you information from the literature that exists, meaning that this is what we hear, right? This is what the research shows us. It doesn't mean that everybody who has cancer has increased resilience because they all are able to adapt a positive mindset, right? Some people don't. And I'm aware of that. And I don't mean to be disrespectful when I say, oh, this is what happens to people who are on their cancer journey. But I'm presenting, we're going to go through these 5 areas. There are going to be about 20 spaces. I'd love for you, as we're going through it, for your own self, not for me, but to go through it and say like, oh yeah, I can identify with that. That's something that I have experienced. Or like, seriously, they found social support. I'm feeling isolated. Um, Again, even having the awareness of where you're holding in each of these places, in a way, maybe it could help to goal setting. It could help to, for exploration. Maybe some of these things you feel you need, you desire, or you don't need, or you don't desire. So I just wanted to say that before we went on. So again, cognitive adaptation is kind of like fostering a more positive mindset. Emotional regulation is figuring out how to manage your response to stress, right? Maybe mindfulness experiences, or expressing yourself emotionally in a new or in a different way. Social support. A lot of people in their post-trauma growth recognize the role of social networks and interpersonal relationships, and recognize that these connections can really contribute to our ability to navigate through difficult things. Adaptive coping, again, to adapt means to fit in to do something in a successful way. So explore coping strategies that are really constructive, practicing, whether it's yoga, breathing exercises, creative outlets, immersing yourself in nature, right? Just finding ways to cope, to find our balance. Humor is an example of an adaptive coping skill. And another personal strength people find is that there's an increase in personal growth and meaning, that they find the experience as really a transformative learning experience, and recognizes a different world view, or maybe decides to volunteer and give back. This idea of increased meaning. Okay. Appreciation for life. Many people post-trauma find this joy and meaning in a positive and enriched outlook. Again, finding beauty and joy even in everyday things that maybe was just overlooked before the trauma. So how do we find appreciation of life? We find that a lot of people, after undergoing a trauma like a cancer diagnosis and treatment, actively seek and recognize joy in smaller things. We're able to kind of bring it back and look for joy in small places. So again, this enhanced perspective is shifting from focusing on hardship perhaps to the positive aspects in existence, to find gratitude in adversity. Again, learning to express gratitude for simple pleasures. Oh, I feel really good today. Oh, I really got to enjoy that bowl of chocolate ice cream that I haven't been able to stomach, in the past. A deeper emotional resonance, just becoming more in tuned to the nuances of life, right? Stopping and really thinking about, how am I feeling today? I'm feeling very loved. I'm feeling very connected. I'm feeling joy in this moment. Resilience in the face of uncertainty. Um, while, of course, experiencing a trauma brings on a very heightened awareness to mortality and the fragility of life, it also can give us that push us to this choice of, I'm going to live fully, I'm going to live authentically, I'm going to do what I want to do. I have a very dear friend whose mom, I mean, I'm friends with the mom too. She's healthy and well right now. We'll just call her Mrs. B for now. And she's a little bit of she's a feisty lady. She's probably, I'm going to say she's maybe 81, 82. Mrs. B had a massive brain tumor. This is probably going back 15 years, and a very touch and go surgery, but came through it successfully. And she now says that she can say anything on her mind, because who's going to argue with a woman who's had a massive brain tumor removed? So again, like kind of taking on this idea of, I'm just going to be authentically me, and here's my opinion. And again, a real example of a resilient mindset. Mindful presence, again, embracing each moment, practicing mindfulness, feeling connected to the present. Positive reframing of experiences, right? Emphasizing the lessons that we learn through difficulty, and keeping them close, and using them in our life. Increased altruism and connection. We know that many cancer survivors, cancer patients, desire connections with others and are motivated to engage in acts of kindness, even small acts of kindness, right? Saying thank you, helping, just enhancing that sense of connectedness and purpose. Embracing life's complexity. So it's hard to have a simplistic view when you're living a very complicated day to day. So understanding that life is very multifaceted, kind of like I was talking about with that pottery before, it's complex and multifaceted. So appreciation for life. Improved relationships. When we go through adversity, it offers this potential to really reshape our connections to other people. Sharing vulnerability, like I know is a cornerstone of the support group model. To be able to be together, create a space where there's communication, understanding, where you allow yourself to be vulnerable. It enhances trust and building of relationships. It's a beautiful thing. Adversity can spark increased empathy, compassion, mutual support. We know that I hope that loved ones step up to provide support, whether it's emotional, practical, sometimes even medical support. We become better at communicating. When we struggle, we realize that we need to be clear in communicating. We want to express our feelings more openly. Again, that fosters beautiful relationships. And celebrating milestones together. When we share victories, as small or as large as they could be, it really can strengthen a bond. New possibilities. I know some of this seems a little bit repetitive, but again, this mindset shift, it's everywhere, right? This idea of seeing obstacles not as a barrier, but instead of as an opportunity. Increased resilience and adaptability, we've spoken about. Discovering personal passions. Sometimes when we overcome a challenge, it gives us an opportunity for real self-discovery and reevaluation. Reevaluating our goals, our priorities, maybe our untapped passions or interests, which can connect to career transitions, right? A lot of people after a very difficult experience will pursue a new career path and also shift from pursuing success to actually pursuing fulfillment, which can be two different things. I feel very lucky. I hope I speak for Randy too, as a colleague, that there are some times that the pursuit of success and the pursuit of fulfillment can land in the same place. And certainly we're very lucky to work in a place that really supports that. And the new possibility of life path explorations, reimagining life's goals. Life changes and we say, okay, we're at a place where we're going to imagine a new responsibility, a new potential for us. And our fifth point of that star is spiritual growth. I want to be clear, spiritual does not mean religious, although religious, like practicing religion, whatever practice or faith or not non-faith, religion can load under spirituality, but spirituality is really about finding meaning. Meaning, trauma's search for meaning is really central to post-traumatic growth. We strive to make sense of our experiences. Again, coping mechanisms, people do draw strength from spiritual beliefs, from rituals, the idea of connecting to something greater than ourselves, whether it's, God or the universe or whatever that being is that you draw faith from. Whoops, sorry, where am I? Enhanced. Oh, I left something out there. Okay. Facilitating acceptance. We know that when we find a spirituality in ourselves, it often encourages accepting life's uncertainties, right? There's a power that's bigger, and I learned to embrace circumstances. Again, spiritual growth spiritual communities can provide support. Being in a community that shares the belief and shares practices can be very, very, very fulfilling. And a transformation of values. Cancer diagnosis can prompt individuals to really reevaluate their priorities and put them toward a more profound sense of what really matters. Okay, I know that I am blabbing on and on just a little bit. I don't know if we want to, and again, this is something that I could share with Randy, or when I'm finished, I'm almost done here, we could talk about this. But this idea of taking time for self-reflection in your journey, um, thoughtful self-reflection really gives us as individuals an opportunity to evaluate our circumstances, to gain insights. So the question, unfortunately rhetorical now, although I hope we'll have time to talk about it more in a minute or two. But whether it's through journaling or conversations or a group, questions like, and again, I could forward these to you, what strengths did you discover in yourself that you might not have found if you weren't in this situation? How did you cope with moments of uncertainty? What insights have you gained about your priorities? What truly matters to you in your life? What are some goals or aspirations that you have in your well-being? So the idea of self-reflection as a process, I don't know how many of you engage in journaling. It's a beautiful resiliency practice. I started to say this earlier, and I want to be very clear that when you hear claims about people's capacity to thrive after trauma, that can place a lot of pressure on us. Um, Facing challenges is absolutely normal. The experience shouldn't be like, oh, yay, look at this great opportunity I have for enhanced self-awareness. Facing challenges is normal. It can be an emotional, forget it can be, it is an emotional roller coaster, right? There are moments of highs, there are lows. I beg you to have or to continue to have patience with your process. Process is gradual. Try to find the strength to celebrate the small victories, right? Especially to combat this, again, pressure that I hope I'm not adding to by having this discussion with you today. This process of growth is inherently uncertain, and that in itself is very difficult. We know, though, from the research that about 70% of cancer patients do report that they have had positive growth. Now, again, that means that 30% don't, and I hope that you are in the 70% who can find and recognize the growth that you're having, but it does not mean to put pressure pressure. I think I'm actually going to shorten what I was going to do next, because I really do want to have some time to talk. But when again, in this pressure to feel growth, we do know that there are 4 stages that people experience in their growth journey: struggle, exploration, insight, integration. So I'm just going to kind of quickly say what they are, and we won't talk about them so much, right, Randy? Do you agree? I think.
Okay, yeah.
So struggle, there are a lot of theories about these stages of X, Y, and Z. So when we look at growth, so the first stage is struggle, like grappling with the impact of the traumatic event. Like, I'm not even thinking about growing right now. I'm just trying to figure out like what is going on. So there's really the sense of tremendous struggle at the beginning. Exploration is when you, as cancer patients, you begin to actively explore and make sense of your experience. I mean, because I'm saying it in one sentence does not mean it happens simply or quickly, but seeking out information, for example, being here today, or being part of a group, etc. Insight as individuals continue to go through their cancer journey, they start to really develop a deeper understanding of the journey, of themselves, of the experience, of the potential to grow. And integration, when we really talk about people who have successfully, like those people who report that they have grown, it's that these lessons that we learn and the changes that we've made in our lives, that they're really incorporated into the day-to-day life. So these are just some examples of what are some ways that people engage in post-traumatic growth, right? Engaging in self-care, seeking support, practicing mindfulness. This is kind of a summary of all the things that we've spoken about, setting realistic expectations for themselves. And finally, this is a beautiful visual that I've seen actually related to grief, but I'm going to recommend that we replace the words grief with trauma. And the idea is that people tend to believe that the impact of trauma, it shrinks over time. So like if the vessel is you and me, and that big ball in there is our trauma, right? This belief that like, oh, you'll get used to it. It'll, time will make it better. That's not the growth model. The growth model is the blue model. Really, that trauma that we carry, that grief, that struggle, that difficulty, it stays. When the vessel grows, that's post-trauma growth. That is what this is about today. That's what this discussion is about today. Finding the way for you to grow in it. It's as big, but you become bigger. And the last thing is, each of us are more than just what happens to us. And my hope for you is that you find a way to be bigger and grow and thrive even in this very, very difficult place that many of you find yourselves in. And so I'm going to open it up
Thank you
for
so much.
discussion, ideas, questions.
Thank you so much.
Oh, whoops. There we go. I'm going to leave it at that screen. Yeah, so if anybody has anything they want to share, or I guess, Randy, do you want to take over as a moderator? I don't know.
Sure,
I see there's a little one in the chat box, but I don't have the chat box open, so I
Oh,
don't know.
okay, I have it. Phyllis, you wanted to say something?
Yeah,
Mute
I
button.
do find I have found over the 6 years that I've had cancer that it is a series of micro traumas.
Yeah.
Many people in my writing group agree with that assessment. So I just wanted you to comment on that, and also, like going through something, and maybe it's forgiving yourself, going through something and handling that doesn't mean that the next one is going to be easier to handle. I think that maybe that's what I'm trying to say.
Right, right. So thank you for sharing that. I want to take a little side comment before as I'm like pulling my ideas together in my head, and say, like, even that you're sharing that you're in this writing group, like writing as a way to like remain mindful and process it, like that's a beautiful practice, and like an example of some of the things that we talked about. So I don't know if it's because of that because of that writing group that you're actually aware of and asking this question of like these micro traumas, and like getting through one doesn't mean that you can get through the next. And it kind of sounds like, well, unfortunately, I agree with you. It's true that just because you got through one, it doesn't mean like woohoo, you can master this now. But the hope, and I hope this doesn't sound like I'm avoiding answering your question directly, but as you go through, sometimes just getting through the hurdle of getting through one micro trauma, in a way, it's like, you give yourself a star, like, okay, I got through that. So how did I get through that? I thought that was gonna kill me, damage me, destroy me, throw me into a depression, but I'm here. I'm not saying it was worth it, but I've learned, this is what I did. This is who I leaned on. This is how I, you know, to use a phrase that I wish was mine, but isn't, I leaned into it, and I figured out how to do it. But you're right. It doesn't mean that you get a free pass the next time something shitty happens. Am I allowed to use bad language in this group? It doesn't mean you get it doesn't mean you get a pass, right? There's plenty to go around, and I don't mean this as crass as it sounds, but just because you're struggling with cancer, it doesn't mean that there's not a lot of other crap that you have to deal with too, right? Like you have whatever, friends, coworkers, neighbors, I don't know, whatever, difficult, war, politics, like it's difficult. It's difficult. I, I feel like that addressed your question. I hope it did. But
So what I'd like to say to the
Thank
group
you.
is also, thank you, Phyllis, for speaking about the writing group. We have a writing group that's on Mondays with Leslie Popkin, and the people that attend the group seem to love it and have built their own little mini community and support each other tremendously. And that's the goal of what we do, but also about being resilient, because you're able to lean on others. When one is stronger and feeling okay, then they're able to pick up those that are not doing as well for the moment. And then hopefully it reverses when it's your turn to be able to hopefully feel better and stronger, to be able to then be there for somebody else. So
unity is a core of so much that is beautiful about being human.
And can I also just add, I'm about to celebrate my 5th anniversary of being in that writing group. So it's
That's
worth
amazing.
every second that I'm there. So if anybody's thinking about it, they definitely should give it a try.
I'd love to come visit one day if you'll have me.
I'm sure Leslie would say great.
Yeah. It's a virtual group, and they just love each other and the ability to write. It's not always about cancer. Is that true, Phyllis?
Yes, that's true. That's true. It could be about anything. So,
Right.
Leslie gives us a prompt. You can relate it to your cancer. You cannot relate it to your cancer, or you could write about anything. So it's really, and believe me, I'm somebody who didn't like to write and didn't like to share my writing before I took this class. So don't at all feel like I can't do it.
It's very cathartic. Writing is very cathartic.
Anybody else feel like they've grown in any which way since they've been diagnosed with their cancer? Or actually, we have some caregivers. So if you've grown by being a caregiver, that's also something that other people can learn from.
I'd like to speak. This is Glynis. For me, it depends, resilience, for me, it was a journey. So at first, it took a while. What I hung on to was gratitude, because I was thankful that my cancer was found. I was thankful that the treatment worked. And so I got through that. And then it's now to get my body back together. So then I found, of course, I am also in a group. It's the cancer group led by Susan, and it's awesome having ladies. We're in the same position, and we talk about everything, and and we care about each other. And so I know, we bounce ideas off, what are you doing? How are you doing? And we care. And that helps a lot. So it changes as we go along. So resilience, the thing is, I wouldn't use the word fighting, but it's acceptance at this point that things have changed in my life. And but I have support in every way. So that helps a lot.
I just want to pull that back to the idea of like, because of your cancer diagnosis, you wound up in this beautiful community, and that's a beautiful
Exactly.
thing.
Exactly.
It doesn't mean it was worth the cancer diagnosis, but that wasn't our choice. Joining the
Right.
group and becoming part of the community, that's your growth choice.
Right.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts?
Since no one else is, I want to share. I was kind of fighting with myself the whole time since Randy asked me if this was a sentiment that I wanted to share with the group, because I don't want to make this at all about me. But Randy actually is. I lost my mom to cancer. And my mom, her first cancer diagnosis was a breast cancer, and she was actually in the group. She was very lucky. It was a DCIS. It was very treatable. The doctor actually looked across the table and said, "You will not die from this disease." That was a very nice thing to hear a doctor say. And my mother did not die from breast cancer. But my mom, who had always, she had a rough life, whatever, it's a whole different story. But my mother was a tough cookie, and was always, I think, never really trusted that she was loved by us and the world as much as we all knew we loved her. And when she let herself become a little bit vulnerable and let us help her in her cancer journey to doctors and, cheering her up and being with her through the months of the treatment, my mother actually said, and I swear this is a direct quote, and again, I'm not trying to trivialize. My mother said, "Breast cancer is the best thing that has ever happened to me."
Mm.
My mother found her true sense of like comfort and value in her relationships because she allowed herself to be open to it,
Mm.
because that's what the experience brought. So I
Yeah.
hope it's okay that I shared that with you. It's
Yes.
but
No,
yeah,
thank you.
we
Yeah.
find, it's crazy. In a way,
Yeah.
It's beautiful, Lisa. So
Yeah.
many of
Yeah.
us are guarded. We don't want anybody to think that we have any foibles, that there's anything wrong with us. We are strong and fighters. And the
Mhm.
reality is, and you use the word authentic many times, Lisa, the minute when you can find your authenticity and to be
Yeah.
able to sit in it and to be able to share it, you find that you attract so many wonderful, caring people. And that's a beauty when you are dealing with a trauma. And it doesn't, again, it doesn't have to necessarily be with a cancer diagnosis. It could be, life. So it could
Right.
be financial, it could be relationship, it could
Yeah.
be those things plus. It could be special needs children or family members. We have, as I said, we have some people here who are not only, some people are cancer survivors, but also caregivers for people who have other ailments. And so to be able to find that you can share, people see you in a completely different light than when you are this person who it appears that nothing is wrong with their life.
Yeah.
And I really thank you for sharing that, Lisa, that your mother had the opportunity to grow in
Yeah.
spite of having had a diagnosis.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Anybody else? Do you want, Lisa, would you go back? There were a couple of questions that you had. Perhaps we can
Oh,
touch on those.
questions that you want me to find in the chat, you mean? Questions that were
Yeah.
in the chat?
No,
Oh.
oh, we do have questions in the chat. I'm sorry. I was
okay.
gonna say questions that you had. I learned to be a little bit more comfortable with uncertainty and to appreciate the enormous and precious gift of life. Thanks, Mary. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I always, prior to my diagnosis, I always felt like I had to be in control of the situation. And I think most of us are like that. You know, we have our jobs, we have our responsibilities, we have to take control. And this experience really told me that there are times when you don't have control and you have to live with the uncertainty. You have to live with the fact that you are now completely vulnerable,
Yep.
completely exposed. And that's a hard lesson to learn, but it's a beautiful thing to be able to just live in the mystery, just allow yourself to be there. And what will happen is meant to happen. And to cede complete control is so scary and so beautiful when you can actually feel that relief off of your shoulder, that it's not up to you.
Yeah.
That was really my first experience of having that. And it led me to be so grateful for every little thing. Every morning I woke up, to this day, it's a blessing to be able to wake up in the morning, and anything that happens during the course of the day is such a blessing. And I remember reading something that expresses really what I feel. Someone said, before my diagnosis, I was living in black and white, and after my diagnosis, I'm living in color. It just changes everything.
Perfect.
Oh, that's
I
beautiful.
feel like you
I
just
like that,
grabbed
Mary.
like
I like that.
everything that I presented in your one, you know, you had the vulnerability and the
Yeah.
mindset shift and the spirituality.
I loved your talk to us, because it really did encompass everything that I have felt and am still feeling. So thank you for that.
Mm. I
That's
like that,
beautiful.
Mary. That's very good.
Allie, I'm not sure what you were saying.
I was saying sorry to Lisa for losing her mom, and that I went through the same thing. So hi everybody. Really quickly, I had lost my mom to colon cancer, and she fought for 3 years and had a really, really rough end. That kind of similarly, so like she had her trials and tribulations in life, and then to have that was like, how could someone so great deal with all of that? So when I had my diagnosis at 33, it was kind of like my worst nightmare, and fortunately cancer free. And I resonate with so much of this, but I think it's still very much a roller coaster of, you know, I agree. I think what Mary was saying of like every day, it's like, well, I woke up and, you know, just the appreciation for like a beautiful sunrise, which so many people that don't go through these things would never take the time to acknowledge or notice. But it could very well also be the days where I'm like, you know, I know you're not supposed to compare, but it's like you look around and everyone has their seemingly normal lives, and you're like, why me? You know, why do I have to go through this? And I think it's just kind of allowing yourself to feel that and kind of, you know, go with the flow. I will echo what a lot of people have shared of, I now have had such great experiences. I went whitewater kayaking and it was scary as anything. Like I never would have done that if I didn't go through this experience. And I also picked up my life and moved from New York to Miami. And Lisa, you'll appreciate this. I was driving in the car one day and I was like, Mom, I'm going. Like there was no one that was going to stop me. And I definitely would not have had the guts or whatever the right word is to do that. So one day at a time, I think, is my motto.
Thank you for
Thanks
sharing.
for sharing, Allie.
I know
course.
this doesn't
Um,
require reiterating, but you know, each of you really have said this in your own way, this idea of like, forget that black and white world. I don't just feel one way or the other. Like, I have to allow myself to hold all of these things that even though they're contradictory to one another, they're still true, right? The best love also comes with hate. The best joy also comes with sadness, right? What brings us the most joy can also hurt us the most. And that's a huge just therapeutic gain in any circumstance for people to stop this push all the time to just like, well, which is it? Is it terrible or is it okay? Yes.
Mhm.
It's both. It's
Mhm.
Absolutely. Lisa said, I have so much gratitude. I'm lucky to have resources. I wish all the women without such luck find the same, especially the poor and vulnerable. And
Amen.
that I think is something to talk about also, Lisa. That, to be able to have that kindness towards others when you realize how blessed that you really are.
Right. Again, I
Yeah.
think it's just that we start to see you just have the shift in perspective where we don't just look at ourselves anymore. Um, I
Yeah,
didn't know,
and
I don't know
Sue
if you meant me,
said,
Lisa, or the other Lisa.
I'm sorry, what?
I didn't know which Lisa you were referring to. I hope it's
Oh,
Lisa.
oh,
You want to speak?
oh.
Would you like to say also?
Hi, I'm Lisa. I'm
Mhm.
not on video. Yes, that's what I think about the most is the people who don't have the resources. I'm a nurse a long time, and I've seen so many people go through this, never myself, obviously. And we're just so lucky to have the best doctors, the best, we live in New York on Long Island. We have the best doctors, the best resources, the best of everything. And your diagnosis is the golden ticket.
Mhm.
Hopefully, um, I'm lucky. It's a low stage, grade 1. I'm very lucky, and I feel, people dealing with higher stage and different types of issues. I can't speak to that because that's someone's personal journey, but all I know is seeing people who don't have the resources is heartbreaking, and you just want to make sure you can help as many people as possible have the same type of opportunities that we have.
Yes, yes. Thank you. And I'm going to move on to Sue Fi because we're running out of time. You said I've said there's a silver lining to having cancer, finding out who your true friends are.
Mhm.
Seeing who stepped up to help was sometimes eye-opening. I think everybody on this Zoom could probably say that that is 100% true.
Yeah. True.
Do you want to add to that, Sue?
Just that I was very surprised at some of the people that did step up and very surprised at some of the people that did not.
Yeah.
It was like I said, it was kind of eye-opening
Mhm.
because some of the people that I expected to be there were not. And that was almost a slap in the face. But seeing who did was the silver lining. I don't know how else to put it.
Yeah.
But in terms of this trip that we're on, I think one of the things I've learned is that this is the new normal.
Mhm.
People talked about getting up and said, being grateful for that. I get up and I don't know what today is going to bring.
Mhm.
And that is the new normal.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of ready to, whatever the new normal is, to accept it.
Yeah.
Yeah. being able to go with the flow is not an easy thing to do. Some of you are, going to be battling for the rest of your lives, and some of you are cancer free, and that's a beautiful thing as well. Might have side effects from treatments. But you'll never be that person you were prior to your diagnosis. And that doesn't necessarily mean you're a worse version of yourselves. Many oftentimes you're going to say that you're a better version of yourselves. So yeah, to be able to work, wake up in the morning, Sue, and to say like, what's today going to be? Because the past has been like very surprising consistently. But to be able to deal with it, and that's the goal of resilience, to be able to learn to ride those waves. And then if you can't do it by yourself, to be able to reach out to others, to be able to have them support you.
Yeah, I
Lisa
do
Korman.
celebrate cancerversaries. And when I mentioned it to one of my cousins, he said to me, I would think you would want to forget about it. I was like, I embrace it. I've got 2 different stage 4 cancers. I'm here over 9 years now. I celebrate that.
People spend an awful lot of time just pushing down ideas that are difficult to deal with. And in this group, again, I don't mean it's worth it, but you have the privilege of realizing that pushing it down is not what's going to keep you moving forward. So yeah, like, oh, wouldn't you want to just forget it? Like, no, if I forget it, then I'm forgetting who I am and where I am in my journey. And God bless you for being in your journey.
No doubt, no doubt.
Yeah.
So any last words, Lisa?
Just thank you for having me here. I find this group in particular, and just the knowledge of your existence in the JCC family and in the universe, I just find it incredibly life affirming. And I'm really honored to be here with you. I hope that I always say, if you could walk away from an hour engaged in a conversation with one idea that you are going to carry with you and it's going to have an impact on you, then it was worth it. I mean, I hope I left you with more than one idea, but if it's only one, I hope that it was information that even if it just restructured a lot of things that you've probably thought about already. And like I said, I'll send the slides to you, Randy, if anybody would like to have them. And of course, anybody who'd like to reach out, my email address is lkorman@sjjcc.org. I think it's on the bottom. Is it on the bottom of the slides? I can't see my slides anymore. I think it's on there somewhere, but I'll
put it
send
in the
all
chat.
that out. And I just wish you all the best of health and success and connection on your journey. And thank you for having me here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Before we leave, I just wanted to tell you that the end of February, we're having a very exciting opportunity. It's going to be a intro to a program that we're hoping to kick off, and that is storytelling. So it's an hour and a half meeting. And Jude, this woman who is amazing, as an amazing teacher, and she helps people come up with a nugget of an idea and turn it into a story. And then we are going to be able to have like 6 people participate, and then be able to share their stories if they choose to. If not, it's just the process. It would be 4 sessions. It's quite expensive to bring her in. So I'm really pleased that we're able to do that again as something that is free to the members of the Nancy Marks Cancer Wellness Center. So just keep an eye out for it, keep an open mind, and come and join us, and then listen to what Jude has to offer, and then you can make a decision if you'd like to sign up and participate in the storytelling.
Okay.
So I wish you all a good evening. Thank you for joining us once again, and look forward to seeing you again at our next educational program. Thank
you,
you.
Randy.
Have a good
Thank you
night.
so much. Thank you,
Thank
Lisa.
you.
Night. Bye-bye.